It's your boy Monkey Way J. Welcome back to another banger, and we are back reacting with Ohara. And this time he is talking about who Zoro needs to fight between now and the end of One Piece. Now, I will say he has a few people in here that I was like, whoa, I don't know about that. But a lot of these I feel like are very, very predictable fights in terms of they have to happen. And I really can't wait for these to happen. Let me know how y'all felt about them in the comments below. If y'all felt like he missed someone or he was reaching with a couple. If y'all like the video and subscribe. Join Monkey Way gang if y'all are new. And also subscribe to my podcast channel, Poneglyph Podcast, where we go live every Sunday. For my Poneglyph Podcast people out there. I know November, me and Ja, we had a lot of stuff going on, but we back. We back, so stay tuned. I love y'all, I appreciate y'all. Spread love to the people that mean most of y'all. Let's get into the video. Enough of me yapping, I'll see y'all in there.
The world's greatest swordsman isn't even close to finished, and there are still some absolute beasts in his way. So today we're gonna break down every opponent Zoro still needs to defeat, when and why those fights will happen, and what would go down if they fought right now in the story. And I want to start with Mihawk, but not the one that you're thinking of, because I was talking with a friend recently about whether Zoro would fight the Seraphim Mihawk, S-Hawk right here. Okay. And let me tell you, the debate got surprisingly heated, so I was just like, screw it, we're gonna make an entire video on this topic. So check this out. S-Hawk is basically Mihawk 2.0, right? Just if you gave the original Lunarian durability, laser beams, and I don't know, the personality of a slightly annoyed teenager. So I definitely think that Zoro will need to take him out. But the really scary part is that he's not even at his full potential yet. These things are basically child weapons right now, and they're already going toe-to-toe with some absolute top-tier fighters. Now, we have already seen Zoro clash with S-Hawk back on Naked Island, and it wasn't exactly a super casual spar either. Even with Gear 5 Luffy helping out, the Seraphim's Lunarian defense made them insanely hard to put down, and that's before we even factor in that this guy is quite literally modeled after the one man Zoro's been chasing since the East Blue. And so if S-Hawk ends up fighting for the world government or gets picked up by another big name pirate crew, it just makes a lot of sense that Zoro would be the one to fight him. As for right now, I would say that Zoro might have the edge at the moment, but not by a huge margin it seems. And if all these Seraphim keep growing and learning at the crazy pace that they have so far, we could be looking at a monster even stronger than the original. And if I had to guess, I would say that this fight most likely has to go down in the—
That would be crazy because Zoro is chasing Mihawk and S-Hawk does have the Lunarian as well. And he's like made to genetically just improve. It's just it's crazy to think about what the Seraphim really can be.
But of course, S-Hawk isn't even close to even being the most dangerous world government fighter that Zoro's gonna have to cross swords with. Because standing even higher on that threat list is a person that can command S-Hawk, Saint Ethan Baron Venus Juro. This member of the Gorosei is absolutely Zoro fight material because not only is he one of these so-called gods of the One Piece world and one of the 6 most powerful people in the government, but his sword is most likely the so-called Shodai Kitetsu, or the first Kitetsu, which is one of the supreme great swords. And if that's true, and it really looks like it, it puts him on a direct collision course with Zoro, who also owns one of the Kitetsu blades. Now, just recently, we've already gotten a real taste of what Nazjiro can do on Egghead Island, and he even clashed a little bit with Zoro. Ridiculous speed, a demonic skeleton horse transformation, and that absolutely terrifying Gorosei regeneration power. So I think that right now, at least, Nazjiro is on a completely different level. Zoro would truly need another massive leap to stand toe-to-toe with him, but—
Alright, so I'm gonna say this. The only reason Zoro don't win this fight right now is because of Conqueror's Haki. And I think once Zoro masters his Conqueror's Haki, he'll be fine.
He'll most likely take a first step to this in Elbaf when he learns how to counter the Holy Knight's regeneration powers too. Now in my head, I can't really see this fight happening outside of Marijoa. It kind of seems like the place that the Gorosei spend like 99% of their time, so it just makes a lot of sense that they would fight right there when the Straw Hats might climb the red line. But let's forget the world government for a moment, because Zoro's got another pirate fight that feels pretty much guaranteed at this point. Because just how Zoro is Luffy's right-hand man, Shiryu of the Rain is the blade-wielding second-in-command for Blackbeard, and if these two crews are ever gonna throw down, which, let's be real, hopefully happens, these guys are lining up—
I don't know if he's the second-in-command, but he's one of the top commanders, and he's the swordsman who now has a a devil fruit
across
and
from each
everything,
other
so.
without any question. Shiryu is a former Impel Down guard captain, which kind of already tells you he's got some pretty serious skills with the sword. He's basically on a similar level to the Warden Magellan, who, may I remind you, almost one-shotted Luffy and Blackbeard and his entire crew, so just comparing these two, you know that this demonic jailer is no joke. But now he's also rocking the Suke no Mi, the invisibility fruit, which just makes him so much more dangerous. Now, we can ask, of course, does invisibility even matter against, regular old observation hockey?
I was just about to say that. I think Zoro's observation hockey will be strong enough, especially at the point where he fights Shiryu, to where the invisibility is not gonna... It depends on how the different levels, because there's different levels and factors to certain devil fruits. So potentially, maybe he could like erase his whole presence to where observation hockey will be slow and Zoro will have to tap into some sort of future sight. We'll see what Oda decides to do with the full depths of Shiryu's
have the
devil
answer,
fruit.
but I also can't really see Oda give Shiryu that power if it is useless against any regular level fighter who has some basic hockey, so I would probably guess that you can't detect him with observation hockey. The main question we have to ask though is, who is stronger right now? And honestly, that's a little bit of a tough call. Zoro's probably got a slight edge in terms of raw power and hockey, at least from what I've seen so far, but Shiryu's older, more experienced, and we have no idea just how crazy his devil fruit could affect the fight potentially. Plus, it's also pretty much guaranteed that with the Blackbeard pirates, no fight is going to be a fair fight. I could absolutely see some very dirty tricks happening in this matchup, so Zoro might need to up his game to come out of this one alive as well. And my best guess for when...
The Straw Hats usually always run ones. Sometimes they jump, but in certain measures. Usually, especially pre-time skip and... post-time skip to an extent. They always ran they ones respectfully. They have their jump-ins thrown in there, but Blackbeard pirates are always fighting together. You never see them run once, besides Aokiji. At the end, while he was fighting Garp, at the end, they was still trying to jump Garp. Come on now.
This fight's gonna happen is probably either the battle for the One Piece itself or possibly also in a final clash for the fate of the world. Either way, it's gonna be brutal and it is gonna be awesome. But next up, let's go with a character I bet you might have even forgotten about. So good thing you got this video to remind you, because I think Zoro might also fight Vista, the Flower Sword. Just in case you forgot.
Whoa, Vista, the Whitebeard pirate. Okay, hold on. I don't know. Why would he fight Vista? He's strong though. He was boxing against a Mihawk like with a smile on his face. I'm not gonna lie. He's strong. But why?
This is Whitebeard's main swordsman, and the guy that quite literally went toe-to-toe with Mihawk during Marineford, and dare say, walked away from it just fine. I think that alone tells you that this man is no joke
with a
either.
smile
Now,
on his
Vista's not
face.
exactly an enemy for Zoro, but man, like a fight between these two would be such a perfect way to see just, how far Zoro has climbed.
Yeah.
I mean, Mihawk actually straight up respected Vista mid-battle, and Mihawk doesn't exactly hand out compliments unless you truly earn them, I think. And right now in the story, I do think that Zoro should theoretically be strong enough to beat him, but Vista's skill and experience would still absolutely make him work for every single inch of that victory. And honestly though, who even knows where Vista and some of the other Whitebeard pirates even are right now? He might be dead because of Whitebeard's son Weevil, but if he's alive, I could very easily see this being some random post-Final War meetup or a friendly duel in an epilogue or something like that. Either way, I would love to see these two cross blades. But now we're moving into a fight where I honestly think that Zoro would get absolutely mid-diffed, and that's because Vigilant Shamrock is probably one of the top 5 fighters under Imu's right command. For all we know, he might even be stronger than Venus Juro, and that alone makes him a very serious problem. And if Zoro wants to survive this fight, he's truly gonna have to bring everything he's got, and probably...
I don't know if Zoro's going to be the one who fights him, though. I can kind of see it. If we follow the same type of tradition into the final war, and then we got Imu. But I mean, the Gore say it would kind of be like who fights who. Because final war, we're going to need more than him. Hopefully, we got Shanks on our side. You feel me? Maybe a little twin-on-twin battle.
Even more on top. So, what really makes Shamrock such a nightmare, I think? For starters, he wields the magical sword Cerberus, and we honestly don't know all the tricks it's capable of yet or how it even works, but this thing is a monster all on its own. And on top of that, Shamrock of course also has the classic Holy Knight regeneration and immortality, which basically means that even if Zoro somehow lands some insane strike, it might just straight up not mean and do anything. Also, if we take his twin brother Shanks as a comparison point, which hopefully we can, then Shamrock is very likely stronger than Zoro right now. However, once again, Zoro should be learning how to negate the regeneration powers here in Elbaf, and he'll probably improve his control of his Conqueror's Haki, so Clash could actually happen very soon too, because if Shamrock should come back to Elbaf or after Elbaf, then Zoro is surely gonna get a crack at the leader of the Holy Knights, but honestly, this fight could just as easily be part of the final Marizua showdown. Right. Either way, honestly, this is the kind of battle that would really test how far Zoro has come and truly push him to the absolute edge. So that's like, what, 2, 3 final war matchups for Zoro now? Are we giving Zoro too many enemies here? Nah, it's gonna be fine. Let's throw in another one because Shamrock's father, Saint Figgle and Garling, might be an even tougher opponent for Zoro during the battle to save the world. And honestly, it kind of seems like Oda is setting him up to be potentially even the strongest of the Gorosei, which would then put him, of course, just below Imu and be a perfect matchup for Zoro if the crew decides to take them all on. And just based on sheer reputation alone, I think we have to say that Garling probably at least is stronger right now. Like, we haven't seen him fight, he's old, but old people in One Piece can still be top tiers, as we know.
We've seen him fight in the manga. Come on now.
Just look at Garp. And now that he's joined the Gorosei, he's most likely gonna get some of these strange demonic transformations. So yeah, Zoro's gonna need to truly figure out a way to counter whatever generation or magical shenanigans Garling has up his sleeve just to stand a chance. But Ashura, we could just see some straight up dark powers on both sides of the arena, which would just be, you know, the coolest thing ever. What else do you want to see? Now, if we're talking about true world government powerhouses for Zoro though, we can't forget Helmeppo. Yeah, that Helmeppo. You know, the spoiled child playing with his swords in the live action. But hey, he's grown a lot since the early days, and now he actually wields dual Kukiri knives, so technically, he's a swordsman, which means they could fight, also because Luffy might clash with Kobe, Helmeppo's bro, and...
Bro, he's never going to catch up to Zoro. Stop this. Now.
Zoro would, let's be real, just wash him like a light load of laundry. So I think we can move on from that guy pretty fast. Now this next character is not your typical Zoro opponent, and there's a real debate about if they'd actually fight, but there's still a good chance, I think, that they have to throw down before the end of the story, and that's because Ben Beckman is the only true non-swordsman character on this entire list, but as Shanks' second in command, he's basically destined to fight with Zoro, and his reputation in Shanks' crew is very similar to Zoro's reputation as, you know, Luffy's equal. Now, of course, Shanks himself is a swordsman, but come on. You know that fight is Luffy's alone. Let's not, you know, mess with anything here. No need to fix something that's not broken. Now, you have to remember that this dude fights with guns, yes, but it's not like he's doing some weak sniper stuff from across the map. The man can hit you with a bullet or straight up just pistol whip you like we saw in chapter 1 of the manga. But if these two fought right now, I would actually probably still give it to Ben Beckman. I mean, his reputation alone suggests that he's on Admiral level, and we've seen glimpses of his insane composure and precision and stuff in non-canon, you know, movies like Film Red, where he looks absolutely insane. But Zoro isn't that far behind, I hope, and we'll most likely see this clash if the Straw Hats and the Red Hair Pirates ever end up on a true collision course for the One Piece, or, you know, if Shanks just wants to test Luffy and his crew. And by the way, you can set yourself on a collision course with the best One Piece content on YouTube by joining my official Ohara Patreon squad. Because by joining, you'll influence community. This the Patreon link in the description. After Ben Beckman, let's now swing back to the Marines for a second, because if Zoro's gonna scrap with an Admiral, I feel like Green Bull feels like the guy, and not just because, you know, Zoro's hair is green. Now, I gotta say, he's not exactly a pure swordsman, but he does fight with a blade and mixes it with these crazy plant powers of his, so that's pretty exciting. Plus, out of all the admirals, Green Bull kind of gives off the least good guy vibes, as weird as that sounds with Akainu in the list, so I can kind of see him sticking around as one of the big endgame Marine villains that the Straw Hats have to take down. Now, as for who's stronger right now, that's kind of the fun question. question. We already saw Luffy handle Kizaru without too much stress on Egghead, so it's kind of fair to wonder if Zoro's creeping up on Admiral level as well at this point. Now personally, I still think that Green Bull would probably edge him out slightly right this second. I mean, he did low diff King and Queen from the Beast Pirates, but it's not some impossible gap to close. Zoro could definitely...
He low diff King and Queen after they had already lost, though. We can't just, like, yeah, that's a feat in itself, but we can't hype the feat up too much because it's not like he freshly low diffed them.
Pull it off with the right push, I think. And then we have Admiral Fujitora, of course, not forgetting him. This guy's always been a little bit of a wild card in the Marines because unlike most admirals, he actually has a true sense of justice that feels, how should I say, not completely messed up or confusing.
Facts.
He's just a straight up good guy. So I could absolutely see him flipping sides in the final saga, but in case he somehow decides that his duty is after all with the Navy no matter what, that does set up a clash with Zoro that would be absolutely insane. Fujitora's character is also based on the legendary blind swordsman from Japanese media, so you've kind of got to think that he's got at least one more really epic battle left in him in the story. Because remember, back in Dressrosa, Zoro and Fujitora did already, you know, have their little skirmish. It never really felt like they were going all out or having a full fight. Kind of more like Oda teasing that possibility in front of us. A final war rematch would be the perfect payoff though, and this time it wouldn't just be a few exchanges in the streets. And the matchup itself is quite fascinating, honestly. Zoro's the kind of guy who pushes through everything and anything with sheer brute force, but Fujitora's gravity powers aren't something you can just brute force your way past. I think, if someone can do it, it's Zoro. But that would also force Zoro to adapt more and prove he's got a whole nother level to take on this gravity master, and who doesn't want to see Zoro slice through some giant meteors, right? But now I want you to get ready for this next one because I'm gonna hit you with a character whose name you probably might not even remember. This guy right here is the absolute legend.
That's Garp's dude.
That is Bogart. And he's basically Garp's right-hand man and has been for decades, so if there is ever gonna be a final Garp versus Luffy clash, then you can bet that Zoro and Bogart will be throwing down in a heated battle.
He has no feats.
But now, let's talk about the fight we have truly all been waiting for. You know, the one that absolutely has to happen to determine the world's strongest swordsman. Let's talk about the all-out epic brawl of Zoro versus Tashigi. Wait, what? That's not supposed to be in the script. I guess we'll have to talk about this one as well now. She's been chasing after Zoro since Loketown because I guess they're basically on the same wavelength when it comes to, you know, geeking out about swords. She's obsessed with collecting and protecting the most famous blades. And, you know, Zoro just happens to be the guy hoarding a bunch of these legendary blades at this point. Now, let's be real. This is not going to be some world-shattering, island-splitting duel. Sure, Tashigi's probably leveled up her hockey, but Zoro at this point is just way ahead of her.
Yeah.
No debate here. But that doesn't mean the fight wouldn't matter. I mean, a spar between these two could be the perfect thematic moment, kind of a way for Tashigi to prove her resolve and for Zoro to acknowledge her growth and power, almost like closing the book on this long-running rivalry. And honestly, I really kind of like the idea of this clash happening after all the chaos is over. You know, no more Marines, no pirates, no world government breathing down everyone's neck, just Zoro and Tashigi, blades drawn, seeing who's gotten stronger. Not to decide the fate of the world, but to settle something between them. And also, come on Oda, can you finally reveal to us at some point also why she looks exactly like Kuina? You can't just put that out and then leave us hanging like this for like decades. In fact, now that I think about it, it could lead to a duel with Zoro's true nemesis, the one opponent he could never defeat and that took his best friend's life. I'm talking about down these stairs, so yeah, no, actually Zoro, you better stay away from this unbeatable monster. Lucky that you always get lost anyway, so you probably couldn't find it, but yeah. Let's instead get to a more manageable opponent that Zoro's actually gonna have to defeat. I don't know, maybe someone like the actual world's strongest swordsman, Dracula Mihawk? Alright, this is the fight that we know is 135% gonna happen in the story, and if not, what are we even doing, Oda, right? Because Zoro's entire journey has been leading up to this one moment. Because it turns out the guy who casually humiliated Zoro all the way back in the East Blue is still sitting at the top, waiting for someone to please knock him off and give him his early retirement so he can read his newspaper on his very awkwardly, weirdly big toilet. What is this thing? Now, let's not kid ourselves here. Mihawk still has the edge at this point, by like a lot probably. Zoro is a monster, sure, but Mihawk is the guy who's been unchallenged as the world's strongest swordsman for as long as we know about it, and has also been training Zoro himself. So for Zoro to even stand a chance, he probably needs 1 or 2 more insane power-ups, something like turning his swords into black blades, unlocking some crazy hockey mastery in Elbaf, you know, like this type of thing that feel like the bare minimum that he'll need for this fight. Now, the real mystery with this battle is of course when this will finally happen. And I think there are kind of 2 big options. One, since Mihawk is now tied up with Cross Guild, Zoro could face him in the big race for the One Piece, you know, kind of like a big clash before the greatest mystery in the story ever is finally revealed. But the other option also feels almost even more fitting, because what if this is not an endgame duel? Kind of like after the crew has found the One Piece, Luffy's crown pirate king, and the world government has been taken down, that's when Zoro and Mihawk settle things once and for all. No armies, no distractions, just 2 pure swordsmen, 1 title, and a fight that the entire story has been building towards.
I can kind of see that just because Zoro said he'll put aside his dream to help Luffy. So I can kind of see that.
It seems really fitting to me, at least, especially because we know that Mihawk and Shanks used to have duels like this all the time before, you know, Shanks lost his arm and, you know, got a little bit boring for Mihawk, I guess. And I, for one, can't wait to see Zoro finally reunite with his mentor in one final all-out clash, showing what he really learned in his journeys with Luffy. Otherwise, Shanks, so much for watching. Shanks, so much, you know, for all our great Patreons right here.
I feel like a couple of those were a reach, but overall, those were some good matchups, and I'm very, very excited to see who Zoro faces and how he fares up to some of these level fighters. A few of them that he threw in, like Vista, kind of caught me off guard. Green Bull caught me off guard. Garling caught me off guard. I don't really know about all those. Even Shamrock, I'm just not sure about. You know, Fujitora, I expected. Mihawk, of course. S-Hawk, I you know, is definitely interesting. Shiryu, I expected. So I expect Ben Beckman as well. You know, I expect them to clash in the race to the One Piece and all that. But man, we got a lot to unfold moving forward with, like, we got some great stories, great fights to get into. I just can't wait. Let me know how y'all felt about it in the comments below. Like the video if y'all like the video, and subscribe to the channel if y'all are new and y'all are rocking with your boy. New videos every week, sometimes 3 times a week, 2 times a week. We dropping, I promise. Word to I was looking at my numbers the other day. I gotta turn this joint back up, and I need y'all help. So I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. I'll catch y'all in the next video. It's your boy Milky Way J. I'm out of here. Y'all be good. Y'all be safe.